y'all know, like I know, she ain't dropped an album since Ryan Leslie. That Me and You, that's under Next Selection. That's not under Bad Boy.
Damon Jam got the tea in the grill. Spilling true bombs, daily drill. I squad flex, yeah, I never skill. Story so fresh, let the vibe quit.
I am your solo host today. It's me, Jim Jones. But what I want to do is do a quick little wrap up of the entire trial from the beginning to the end with the witnesses and key points. And then also be able to give y'all a little bit of drip to think about as we head on past the ending of this trial, because we are going to be, as if you're living under a rock, obviously it's been finished and sentencing is the next part. So without further ado, once again, I'm Jim Jones. I'm one of two hosts, and then we also have a producer. Shout out to the producer who's helping me out here, so I'm not fumbling and bumbling around here. Cassius Pay. Cassius Pay, you want to say hi to the people? Nope.
Not necessarily, but here we are. Okay.
So it's mostly me, but like I said, I got some help. Make sure this is nice and smooth. So before we hop into it, make sure y'all hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you comment. Let me know, did you like this video? Did you think that this video was not needed? Very much appreciated on all fronts for that. So what's in my cup really quick? I have me some nice flavored water for this day drip I got going on. Also, make sure y'all check out the socials down there. We're everywhere. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you hit us up. And shout out to Plain Dame. He's not here, but definitely here in spirit. So we'll get back to him. We'll be together again on Fridays. We record at night on Fridays. No matter where you are in the U.S., it's nighttime. That's where we are. Late Night Drip with Dame and I and producer. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this Diddy trial. Diddy was basically caught up in a RICO trial, which you have to prove two out of a dozen elements that it could be that he would be convicted of guilty to be able to prove RICO, as well as a couple other charges, which included prostitution, transportation. There's just multiple ways that the federal government was basically trying to get him like, you're doing a lot. Essentially, is they wanted to slow him down. So they had him arraigned. He's been in jail, prison since October of 2024, and he's been in there ever since the trial. So the trial got started with witnesses, did jury selection, that whole jazz. But the actual first witness was Cassie. She came up there between May 12th to like the 16th. She was like 8 or 9 months. She might have been 9 months. I think she was 9 months pregnant at the time. So she did 4 days of testimony about her abuse, how it was coercion, which is a part of the RICO. You have to be coerced in order to have trafficking, which was one of the other elements that could go into a RICO charge. The coercion was to do F-offs, which I'm not sure if we're not allowed on YouTube to even say what it is now, since it's a thing, which ended up being called hotel nights. So do with that as you will. Go ahead and look that up. But, she was doing SX and being basically pushed to do that is what the allegations were. And one of the things that kind of triggered this was that 2016 hotel surveillance video that, I don't know, everybody, their mama and grandmama saw, where she was leaving with no shoes on. Diddy came running out with a towel, tore that girl up, threw stuff at her, like from the image that you saw. This isn't even alleged because this is what the video shows. And so that really triggered a lot of this kind of going on, along with she had her own lawsuit, which I believe she got paid 30 million. She got 20 million from Diddy and 10 from this hotel. So all this kind of triggers one of the things to keep in mind. We'll get to this is bribery, which is, think about it, this is 2016 that this happened. We didn't find out about it until 2024. So that's why that is relevant. But Cassie went up there, talked about how, she had been with Diddy for a long time, well over a decade. And so during this time that she did F offs where she would have S acts with escorts. Um, these escorts, there's a couple of them who come up and testify, but they were under the impression that they are going to dance, kind of, but it ended up turning more into like a dancing bears. So that kind of ended up happening. Um, wow. So she is being filmed in some of these doing things like some things that we like majority of the public would publicly say is egregious. Uh, we obviously can't repeat that on YouTube, but she's doing SX essentially exchange for he was paying for her place she lived. He had signed her to a 10 album deal. Now, if y'all know, like I know, she ain't dropped an album since Ryan Leslie. That Me and You, that's under Next Selection. That's not under Bad Boy. And so that's the last album that we ever got from Cassie. There's been a couple other songs, like I think like Official Girl, and there's like a couple other songs. She was featured on some songs, but like the last album she got produced was through Ryan Leslie, which was about which I had the whole album from it used to be called iTunes. That's how long ago that was. I think she hasn't dropped the album since 2006. Almost 20 years ago is the last time that girl had an album out. Um, so her stance is that she was young, and I think she was like maybe 21. I want to say she was like 21, and her thoughts was that this is a big producer. He's obviously the biggest in the game. Everybody knows Diddy, right? Back then he was called Puff, and he was gonna put her on, right? And as you see, that really never happened. And so because of that, in the physical altercations that obviously 2016 showed that it happened at least once, um, you know, and then also the escort who was in the room also testified that they saw her leaving that room. So like they said that's what they were there for. Anyways, um, that's kind of where her situation is, as well as the S traffic is that she would go from LA to New York. Uh, I don't remember about Miami, but LA to New York, which is crossing interstate lines, which is where the transportation also comes into play. So um, the prostitution is paying for SX. The transportation is its own charge. That is moving people from one place to another. And then the RICO is, different elements like arson, bribery, kidnapping, coercion, stuff like that. So that's those different charges. And Cassie is really their main witness, which, like I said, she was super pregnant. So she ended up having her baby like maybe a week after the trial, if that. She had her son. So like that's how close she was to having a baby to end in the trial. And so they had to put her first, like because of time situation. And she was not to be called again. She was the longest witness, I would say, on the stand. So after Cassie, they ended up calling Don Richard. I don't know if it's Richard or Richard. I've heard it multiple ways. So she comes up there basically saying that she's saw Diddy actually assault Cassie, also witnessed drug deliveries and as well as threats. She was on Danity Kane, as well as the Diddy Dirty Money band. So Danity Kane, if you don't remember, it's the Making the Band, right? So Making the Band started off with O Town. Then it went into Making the Band, which was, Freddie P, Chopper, Ines, Babs, I'm missing someone, Sarah, Dylan. They became a group that came out of basically one of the first reality TVs outside of like Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton. Like they kind of started the whole thing, and then Making the Band was something that Diddy's kind of the forefront runner in creating a group from a bunch of different types of genres and made them into a group. So that was Making the Band the first time. Making the Band 2 is where Don Richard comes in with Danity Kane. Well, actually, I take that back. Might have been Day 26. He's done one with a boy group called Day 26, and then one with a girl group called Danity Kane. Danity Kane, another girl group. And then she kind of stuck around even after the girl group. If you know Aubrey O'Day, she's from that group. they all know each other. One of the things that was a downside for her is that she has her own lawsuit out against Diddy. So she's one of the people who is suing Diddy. So that also was kind of like, ah, are you here for that, or is Dom Richard here for it, or is it about the money? The money. Okay. So speaking of money, next person to come up is Regina Ventura. So this is Cassie's mom. So Cassie's mom comes up, and the reason why she's relevant is because there was threats of showing the F off videos to her mom because she was dating Cudi, Kid Cudi the rapper. We'll get into him in a minute. But Kid Cudi the rapper was dating Cassie, and kind of like behind Diddy's back is kind of what he took it. They were on a break. But I think I think a lot of people will be able to align with when some people tell you it's a break. They don't really mean like a break. You can go talk to other people. It's like we are supposed to just like not see other people, but just not see each other. Although Diddy was allegedly seeing other people, but that once again, when we talk about like hierarchy, like he's the one paying her stuff. He's the one. Really, you wouldn't be in this circle if it wasn't for me kind of mentality. And so she wasn't supposed to talk to nobody else, even though he could. And so when she decided to talk to Cuddy, it was on and popping, on and popping. No, like you owe me money. You owe me money. Give me my money because I've been paying XYZ for your daughter. Um, and so since I've been paying XYZ for your daughter, give my money back. So her mom went and got a mortgage on the house, took out like 20K and sent that via wire to Diddy. And a couple of days later, he ended up sending it back. But yeah, that's that. So that is supposed to be extortion, and proving extortion. That this is he's basically forcing the hand of like do what I say or else kind of thing. Right. So the whole point of the prosecution is trying to use the hotel people of like bribery. Israel Flores is one person that was a guard. Eddie Garcia, in the month of June, is the security supervisor that he gave 100K to bury the video itself. And so they had to split it three ways. He talks about a whole conversation about with Diddy, and Diddy's like kind of laughing, like, "Oh, don't spend it all in one place," kind of thing. And so that's where those two, the hotel people, come into play. There's another person who is in there that I don't have her name down, but there was another lady who represented the hotel as well. And she talked about how bad the damages were to the room. So the prosecution is using all of these things of like what's considered a prop, what's not considered a prop, um, to kind of prove the case of like all of these things are going on and all these people are impacting, which is creating a RICO because there's KK, there's other people that are involved where they have text messages and like written agreements. Like Eddie Garcia had a full-on NDA where it was like, hey, if you tell anybody, you owe me $1 million. So Diddy didn't write that himself, right? So that is where the prosecution is trying to build. It's an enterprise because he could not have done all of these things himself. And so this is kind of their method of how they're proving that part. So hotel workers are hotel workers. KK is his chief of staff. It's like Christina Coram. D-Rock is security, aka like his homie, essentially, who I'm not gonna call him. He's not necessarily like it sounds like he's security slash like his friend, like to keep things cool enough because I'm assuming he's a street dude. So anyways, those people, if those people were not in play, or if he did not have the resources to have those people put those things in play, then this wouldn't happen, is kind of the structure of that. So keep that in mind as the prosecution is trying to build this case, right? Going into May 22nd, I think that's like week 3 of May. So Daniel Phillip, he's the male escort. He was the one who was in the LA hotel when the assault happened. He confirmed that he saw Diddy assault and drag Cassie multiple times, and also that he described like the escort situations that ended up turning into like F-offs. So he is proving in the prosecution's web that there is prostitution going on because it's going to tell about how much he got paid to do it. He is, I don't remember him being across state lines. I don't know if he is across state lines. I don't remember him being across state lines, but he is a witness to assault, which is not one of the charges that are coming up. We all know that he hit Cassie, like it's obvious, but that is not domestic violence, and hitting is not what's being targeted here. What the prosecution is trying to prove with stuff like the assault, like Daniel Phillip, would be attached to not only prostitution but also that the assault is making her do f offs, and so that is like basically you need to do these. If you don't do this, then you know else essentially. And like I don't remember ever seeing any proof of what else is though, so keep that in mind. It's more of like an insinuation, like she was saying she never really asked because in her mind because of everything that's going on, she never really wanted to know if I didn't what would happen to me. And besides obviously the f off videos like being sent to her mom or telling her parents, like that was one of the threats that were given. But like, it's not like he ever said like, if you don't do this, and I'm gonna kick you out. Like, I don't think that there's any proof of that. Speaking of proof, a lot of this proof came from Cassie. She actually had all her old phones. I'm gonna tell you right now, you keeping a phone from 2010, 2015 is crazy work. Like that is wild that you were able to keep a phone like your iPhone, like that is like upgraded to the new one now, act like it don't even want to work and it's been 3 years. Imagine what that phone doing from 10 years ago. Crazy, crazy. So keep that in mind as we talk about this too, that sis was holding on to a phone for 10 years. Like this is not, I would say like just a real quick sidebar, this is not like something she wasn't thinking about. She'd been calculating this for a while because most people wouldn't have that phone. And I know I'm pretty sure if he's like as demanding as she's stating, he probably wouldn't have even wanted her to keep those phones if he hadn't known. He probably thought she traded them in, or maybe they kept them in a certain place because they don't want to trade them in, which from a technology standpoint, just know like your stuff can be retrieved. Like, even though I'm saying they don't start up, like they can still pull stuff off just like they're pulling off her phone. I promise you, if she try to boot that bad boy up and open up like some kind of app that didn't exist back then, it's probably go freak out. But they can connect, they as in especially the feds can connect it to kind of similar to what you see in like CSI Miami and all that stuff, all them shows where they take and extract things. So just her physically having it, that data is intact because she probably didn't wipe it. And if she didn't wipe it, and she has several new phones since then, she didn't wipe it for a reason. Keep that in mind. So moving on from right, yeah, that's what she was seeing into the future that she was about to sue him. So moving on to fourth week, the last week of May, Cassie's, I guess they're friends now, but like her friend and slash, it was Diddy's assistant called Mia. She is anonymous, so I honestly don't know who she is. Don't really care who she is, but she ends up corroborating that she saw violence to Cassie, violence herself. She alleges that she had a grape happen to her, and that she has had personal abuse as well as like being kind of forced to take rugs, and like kind of the mentality. And I talked about this on the other one, like, yo, we all doing them. If you're not doing them, you ops, kind of type of time. Um, so she attested that. She talked about, like the relationship, how she got hired and so forth. The defense, and I'll go through the defense on a whole separate thing. I'm just gonna go ahead and just talk about the prosecution case, and then I'll come through with like how the defense dismantled each one. That's probably a fair thing to do. So she, talked about her personal abuse. One of the situations that she talks about is that Cassie went to South Africa to film a movie, and she was like, I think they're using the word dating loosely, but dating Michael B. Jordan. And I talked about this on the other video as well. one of the things that KK, which like I said, was the chief of staff for Diddy, which I think she's still technically chief of staff. Like I don't think she fired or nothing like that. And he like the business is not rolling. Um, like, hey, I'm going to call your parents. That's an interesting take. And they specifically put that in there, I think, to show like I'm going to tell someone what you're doing type of thing. So the prosecution is trying to show like, hey, they're taking this control. They're trying to tell people like, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Uh, you know, that was the point on that part. And then I have a gap, but between Mia and I want to say Cudi, I'll get to that. Deontay Nash is another person. I'm gonna just pair him with Mia. They're friends, like Mia, Deontay Nash, and Cassie. Deontay Nash was Cassie's stylist, and he provided some interesting testimony. He talked about how he saw violence against Cassie. He talked about how he saw Diddy talk crazy to people. He talked about how specifically they went to the Prince party and what happened there, where he was upset because she was there and I guess she was supposed to be there. He didn't tell her she could go. And so he called himself gonna come over there and whoop on her. And Prince came and pulled up with his security and was like, nah, we don't do this here, my guy. You better stay away from that girl. So he talked about that. He talked about that they went to an award ceremony and like her hair was down and he was all upset. It was like, pin her hair up, and was like ready to fight him. And then afterwards, he was like, you're right. I mean, I actually did look better down. Like, that's the type, like trying to paint a narrative about how controlling. So that was Deontay Nash's role in the prosecution, is how controlling he was. And then also that she confided in him about the F-offs where he had no idea. And he heard him be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and release them tapes," and she was like, "No, don't do that. Don't release these tapes." And he was just kind of like, "Well, what do you mean?" And she's like, "Oh, it's me like doing SX," and he's like, "Okay, well, whatever. Like he on them too," and she's like, "No, it's just me with other guys." And so so he was attesting to the control and coercion basically piece of that, even though it wasn't him. He was trying to attest to the things that he saw. Another person, this is goes in the kidnapping charge. So Capricorn Clark, she testifies the last week of May as well, and she testifies she is an assistant to Diddy. Another thing is that she is, well, maybe was, I don't know if they're still friends, but she was friends with one of Suge Knight's baby mamas, and so Diddy did not know that, and so he allegedly was not happy. Like basically took her to a park and was like, "Listen, if you mess with Suge, and I find out you let any of this out, like you gonna be missing. You gonna be missing because I don't play with him like that, and you better not play with me." And she's like, "I don't know that man like that." He's like, "You better not know that man like that." So she talked about she was kidnapped for that because it was Central Park at night, and she didn't know that that's basically was going to threaten her life. Another instance was that he had jewelry from Jacob the jeweler, and it came up missing. They were on their flight somewhere, so they stopped the car, told her get out, go find it. She did not find it. They took her to a lie detector, like somebody was over there, like ready to like take her out if she failed this lie detector test, which ended up coming back inconclusive. And so they took her every day for like a week. And it's not like she wanted to. So that's another instance of kidnapping. And then the prosecution's last instance of kidnapping was the Kid Cudi incident. So we'll talk about that next. But when the Kid Cudi incident happened, she said that she contacted Cudi, or she contacted Cassie, who was with Cudi, ironically. But Diddy pulled up to her house where the security guard, which is, it could very well be factual of this because the security guard who let him in got fired because he's not supposed to just like let him in the gate just because he's Diddy. He come pulling up to her house and was like, "Get in the car." She's like, "I'm not trying to get in the car." It was a crazy time of night, maybe like even early morning. So she claims that they went over there and he wrecked up his house. I think he wrecked up his house as well as the arson incident. Like he was involved. She's attesting to the arson incident, uh, as well as claiming kidnapping. All these are pieces of RICO, right? So this is what the prosecution is trying to say, like, hey, he's using the people who work for him, he's using the resources, his company car to drive there because he's mad about Cudi. He's using his assistant to find out where she is, and then he told her that he wasn't gonna release her till Cassie came and got her. So basically kidnapping again because she couldn't go unless Cassie came and got her. So these are all the things that the prosecution is alleging and trying to prove. Then they say, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and pull Cudi up. So Scott Muscuddy, aka Kid Cudi, who is a rapper, I believe he did some music with. He happened to be in the studio with Cassie a while before he ended up even talking to her. So they just were cool. Then they end up kicking it. Then they end up dating. So, but that's all because of Diddy. Diddy put them in the studio together. So this is really why a man would be mad. It's like you would have never met him if it wasn't for me. And now you gonna go with that guy? I don't care. We on a break. You're not gonna do that. So allegedly, Diddy or someone that Diddy hired went into Cudi's house. Now, no forced entry. Okay, no forced entry. Went into his house, turned the cameras around so you can't see who went in there, roughed up his presents and stuff, opened everything up. I don't think anything was stolen. But they did put the dog in the bathroom. Dog was very scared. A lot of people were upset about the dog situation. I guess the dog has not been the same ever since. And then also put a Molotov in his car. So like cut out the top, put a Molotov in there, boom, foof. So that's the arson charge that they're alleging that Diddy was a part of because when Cudi pulled up and he found out because who I just talked about a minute ago with Capricorn Clark, she called and was like, yo, he's at your house. He said, yeah, my house. He pulled up racing. Then he pulled up and saw the black car and was like, you know what? Might not be a good idea because Diddy might be about that life to pew pew me. So he backed up out the out the they have like I think it's like a cul-de-sac type of thing, like a kind of like a long driveway. So he backed up. So then allegedly Diddy backed up. Capricorn said they were in a whole chase situation. Now Cudi did not testify to the chasing situation. Cudi did not say Diddy did this. Cudi did not call the police on him. Only thing Cudi did was he did make a police report that something happened to make sure it was on record, more than likely because he got to get insurance, right? But he never on wax was like, yeah, like that guy did this. Like he didn't do that. He did at this point be like more than likely like I saw him at my house, and then he said, he talked to him afterwards at some exclusive place. I can't remember what it's called, but some exclusive place that all of the who's go to, like a bar situation, and was just kind of like, like you should leave her alone. And so eventually after that, from what it sounds like from Cassie and Cudi, they just kind of stopped talking. So she just stopped talking to him. Then comes well, before we get into Jane, let's talk about the Punisher real quick. The Punisher has been going on a world tour, baby. When I tell you he going around with his freezer meat book deal going around, he collected his checks, talk about what happened, which really, I mean, for him, he was called to be an escort, and then Cassie pulled up and he like this gonna work, right? Like usually I'm dancing for chicks who don't look like this. And then he come out with the hijab and no bottoms in the dark. Got that Astro Glide ready and that baby oil. So they were instructed by Diddy, according to him, like a man's voice, which like once he figured out it was Diddy, he was like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. That's definitely his voice. But at the time, he didn't know that it was Cassie. Didn't know it was Diddy because Cassie had a mask on. And then, like instructed to whatever position X, Y, Z, and he was expected to, over time, once he had like a rapport with them, over time, he was expected to finish, and that was a part of the expectation. So we talk about prostitution. In my mind, I really need to see like what the charges are. Is the prostitution on the victims, meaning the women, or does the prostitution extend to the escort? So to me, like I'm guessing that's what the prosecution was trying to prove on that part. Like, is that piece of it? Because he went up there and was like, "Yeah, I came to dance," and then I ended up, smacking fire out of Cassie, and she wasn't the only person that he wasn't the only person that was smacking fire out of her, and he didn't know that. He actually thought that they were just like he was just their usual until he had an injury, and then he like hurt his shoulder or something like that, and so because he hurt himself, he could not perform the same way, so he kind of stopped getting called. So that is the Punisher, and there's a couple other escorts, like Daniel Phillip was one of them. A couple other escorts who testified as well about the f offs, and the f offs are to prove the s trafficking, the coercion in some of these situations, and transportation because they would go from one place to another. So that's the purpose of the escorts. And then let's talk about Jane. We can be brief because I think that the internet has done a more than enough discussion about her. This is the same lady who he's still paying her rent, $10,000 a month in her rent. She has child support. She has child support from a rapper that is, I think, like $5,000 to $7,000 a month. On top of that, she has a child that she takes care of, and her job, she was starting up OnlyFans and all these other type of S type of work things that she to body type of things to you know get extra money, which I don't know about y'all, but $5,000 to $7,000 a month and you ain't gotta physically go to work is crazy work. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess she was in LA. Maybe drop some drip in the comments, y'all. Is $7,000 a month and you ain't got to go use no gas or none of that? Not a lot of money. I don't know. I don't live in LA. I have no intentions of living in California, to be quite honest with you. But I mean, I know it's high. I've been to California, but I don't know if it's $7,000 a month. You getting support, and you probably don't have to pay insurance or none of that type of high.
Yeah,
Or you,
but high ass taxes. That's all I'm gonna say. So.
she ain't paying taxes.
Oh, okay. Well, if
You know what I'm
it's
saying? She got child support. She not
no
paying
tax on
taxes.
tips, then there you go. All right.
You know what? If there was no tax on child support, he would have probably got even more votes. That's crazy. Actually drop some drip in the comments. I don't know about child support in that kind of way. Let me know if you are a child support recipient. Do you not pay taxes on that? Like maybe that's what it is. But still, like $5,000, and you could just go get another job. It's not like the kid is a baby or something like that. This is like a kid, so you could technically go get a part-time job. You can go work at the coffee shop. I don't know. Anyways, Jane was over here being transported from uh New York, I think New York or LA. Sorry, LA was where the house. LA to Miami, because Diddy has house in Miami. So, and allegedly she was moving weight. Weight is in like little weight, right? Like usable amounts of weight. She's moving weight to have those rugs between her and him. Allegedly they're in a relationship. I'm gonna be real with y'all. None of y'all was in a relationship. He was for everyone. Like I said in the previous ones, like go check out the more ones. You ain't no ex girlfriend. You're just one of the girls. So, um, Jane went up there crying, talking about she had coercion. F offs were called hotel nights, debauchery. She had threats and also forced encounters. Like, oh, okay, like you don't want to do this. And she's like, oh, it's not that I don't want to do it. I'm just, I want to have just time with you, which I find weird. I still find that weird. Like, if you already know he got the other girls who y'all see all on YouTube, you already knew that. Like, what's the time? I don't know. I can't understand that. She also put her hands on him, where she took his head and hit it to a marble countertop after the Cassie situation became public, which is wild to me. So let's talk about that for a second. This lady really put hands on a man where he was on video dragging this girl, and she gonna bust his head in the countertop, and thought he was not gonna be like The Shining to come and find her. Like, just because he ain't put hands on you, girl, didn't mean he wasn't gonna throw hands. And you made it defensible at that point when you slammed his head down to me, I was going to say Jane is a piece of work. Uh, I'm sure her baby father would probably agree with that. And that's probably why she got a baby father and not an ex-husband. We'll keep it moving. But she's supposed to be the second person of S trafficking, prostitution, um, transportation. Um, I don't know. That's what she's supposed to be. We just gonna go on from Jane because Jane was something else. She was up there for a minute in June, talking about her part, and then they had finally last set of witnesses for federal agents and forensic experts. Like one of the forensic experts was for the arson. They explained that the prints they found on the arson were female, not male. So there's that. Federal agents talked about any disturbances they might have had. Really, I mean, really, it was nothing like, yo, we came to a disturbance and he was over there like knocking the bricks off this girl, or he was caught with like a bunch of weight. Like they don't have anything like that. So nothing really came up with that, but they did present physical and digital evidence of pews, rugs, different receipts, surveillance data that they had, such as the hotel incident. But that's pretty much the whole prosecution's side of that. Cassie and Jane were for the Mann Act, specifically trying to prove that with coercion and violence to do the F-offs. Dawn and Regina were for to help with Cassie's narrative of like being forced and not having a place to go. The Escorts, y'all know, F-offs. Cudi and Capricorn Clark were to show violence outside of the like him doing anything from an actual nature, like the kidnapping, the arson, stuff like that. Federal agents were to try to pin down the narrative. So I say all this to this is what the prosecution has. I pretty much very highly, I very highly gave a summary, very condensed. There's a lot more to it, but and also there's some assistants that testified, male assistants, and they did say that they set up rooms, transported rugs, and had to clean up afterwards, which was very damaging and so forth. And then the other person I didn't talk about was Brendan Paul, who was supposed to be a rug mule, but really, I mean, he was just this dude who was just ready to party. I mean, he moved some weight a little bit, but it wasn't really any weight per se. He's the one who was caught at the airport. And I mean, he was one of many assistants, and it sounds like all the assistants kind of gave a little bit here, a little bit there, which by nature, if that was the play, is almost not a bad idea on his part. Because if he has several assistants with small amounts of weight, they really wouldn't be getting hit with big charges versus if he just had a whole stack of rugs just sitting somewhere. So maybe that was the thought process. So let's go into the defense real quick. They did not call any witnesses because the burden is on the state. The state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt he did this. He did this. There's no reason in your mind that he didn't do this. That is their burden. The defense is to when these, I'm gonna go through some of the witnesses real quick. No question why you said what you said and try to get you to see if it's valid or not, but they don't have to call anybody to justify on their side. They don't gotta do this. And they didn't. And he also didn't take the stand, nor does he have to. So, and Diddy cannot be penalized for not taking the stand as well. So keep this in mind before we get into this topic right here. Defense, when they got to Cassie, they really, really questioned, like, girl, were you really here for him, or you here for this bag? Like, you didn't get any benefit from this? What was you gonna be before him? So they really honed in on, like, are you really here for your benefits? Like, did you not benefit from these things? Like, you may be a victim. We do see that there's abuse, but that is a state level thing. We're not talking about that over here. But you didn't like him. You didn't say that you didn't like this, and so they had text messages and stuff where she's like, "Oh, I'm excited to have an F off." Which, if you are a young girl, we say all kind of crazy stuff because we're in competition for a man, And yes, she kept these messages, but it's a two-way street on that. And you were willing in some ways to do some of the stuff because you were going to keep this man. That's not really the issue with the prosecution. They're not saying that she wasn't willing to do it, but the why is really the issue on that. But it's not what you say, it's what you can prove. So they really honed in on like, you loved him, you cared about him, you would have did anything for him, so you did anything for him, and this is a part of it. Nothing illegal with you wanting to do all this stuff with these random dudes to make him happy. That's really the defense on Cassie. Dawn, they say, yo, you got a lawsuit out, girl. Keep it pushing. You just want some money. They didn't even question her mama Regina. They just let her get off the stand. Israel Flores, I don't believe that they really even did too much with him. Daniel Phillip, I mean, a job's a job. Cassie's stylist or Cassie's friend Mia, who's anonymous, we don't know who she is. She does not have a lawsuit out on Diddy. She does not. Their point on her is maybe she's trying to get some level of clout. Is what she's saying really real, or is she just trying to help with the people she knows kind of get more of it? So, and also that she's kind of not similar to Cassie, but kind of like, you did this because you wanted to make him happy because you were his assistant. Like, didn't you put this birthday post up for him? She's like, yeah. I mean, I work in entertainment. We need to sound like we like our boss. Like, that's just what it is. And they're like, no, you made a scrapbook for him. That's a little intimate. You acting like you didn't like if you had a grape happen to you, don't make it seem like you weren't into him because you really give us signals that you into him. And she's like, no, I wasn't into him. They're like, well, why would you go above and beyond to do these things for him? The scrapbook about the 90s, the birthday post. And so they're just questioning her reasoning of like, I had to do this for work. And they're like, nah, you did more than just for work. So that's kind of their take on her. Capricorn Clark, she also settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, I believe. One of the things she said on the stand, which I think sits from a culture perspective, is allegedly I wasn't in the courtroom, but you can check out Inner City Press. He has a lot of these tweets that are out. You can also check the transcripts. But from my understanding, from what I did read, she addressed that Diddy, Puffy, not Diddy, because this would have been before he became like Diddy, necessarily like the Diddy. Like, he was one of the only people to really put certain people of the culture on. And so it is hard for her to come up here and say this stuff about him because of everything he's done for the culture and give people opportunities, whether you were on Making the Band, whether you were somebody who was an assistant. You'll hear some of the assistants like come up there and talk, and they're like, well, like, wasn't nobody gonna give me a chance, and he's the only one who gave me a chance. And so I never did this at this level before, anywhere close to it. And he was like, come on and rock. So I mean, I would have never been where I am today had he not given me these couple months of my life. Did I think some of the stuff he's doing is a little nefarious? I mean, that ain't my job, and that ain't my life. My job is to do the things he told me to do, and that's what it is. So when she's talking about the culture, like people who, I'm assuming people who look like her. So like probably black and brown people, giving them an opportunity to be in the entertainment space and navigate some of these things and network and be connected. And so it's so deep that she's saying like she can't even go get another job because she burned that bridge so bad. And it's not that Diddy is like, yo, don't hire her necessarily. Like, I'll write. Now, allegedly, he did pull up to one of her interviews and was just in the office, which that's not here nor there. And it wasn't that he went and badmouthed them, but it's more so everybody in the industry just being like, how you ain't working out with Puff? And keep that in mind when we talk about all about the money. These people who work in this industry, if you're in an industry niche, everybody knows everybody. And so the defense is saying, like, since everybody knows everybody and you have a bad rapport, ain't you here because you want a couple of dollars? And she's like, well, my son is on the spectrum. So like, it's been hard to get work, but like, I'm here because it's the right thing to do. They're like, no, girl, you need some money. That's all this is about. You just want to go ahead and get restitution because you need some money. So they're pushing Capricorn Clark on that. As far as Cudi's concerned, it could have been another woman that he was messing with that did that to his car. It was female evidence. It wasn't male. Can't say it was Diddy. It was a chick. The arson investigator said that they actually didn't keep the arson evidence wrapped up enough to be able to deep dive further or even have it in present day. So that didn't help the arson case on that. But when Cudi got the call to come down there about the arson, he was at an ex-girlfriend's relative house. And he says it's on the stand. This then brings in doubt of how many chicks you messing with, because if this is your ex, why are you over at her people house? So that's kind of what the defense was going like, I mean, was you not messing with other chicks? Because like you was at a friend's house. Like we don't know. It's a woman's man. Because if you have no real beyond reasonable doubt evidence that Diddy or people that are connected to Diddy did this to your car. So that was the defense on that part. The hotel supervisors with the bribery, they basically just came up with like, okay, so you say you got this money. Okay, so could you have just gotten this money? Because it's more of like, hey, let's keep this under wraps. Like we don't want this to get out to everyone because it is Diddy type of thing. That's where they kind of went on the defense of the hotel people and the bribery to kind of push the bribery off. Not a bad defense on that. Going to Jane. Basically, cross-examination of Jane was, you are still accepting money from Diddy. How is it coercion? If it was coercion and he like made you do this, and if you didn't do this, then wouldn't he stop paying your rent? But you had a 2-year contract, so he's honoring your agreement that you needed him to pay your rent for 2 years. And so everything basically that she said, they came back with like, didn't you do this voluntarily? Didn't you? How could you be coerced if you're sending these messages and these how you feel about like, oh, I'm excited about this, and you're planning it, you're setting it up, you sound excited. Now, the difference between her and Cassie is she did tell Christina Corum and Diddy, she's got voice messages and stuff like that where she's like, I really don't want to do this anymore. And I don't really like the hotel nights. And he's just like, oh, like, I can't believe you don't like them. Like, you need to do them, yada, yada, yada. So she actually expresses that she does not want to do them and that her intention is she's doing it because she wants to have time with him. So that's really the difference between her and Cassie in that. However, she is setting everything up. She picking the escorts who come. Like she picked some guy off the TV to come and do it. So like they're slightly different in that nature. And so the defense is kind of like, well, I mean, you had a part in this. It ain't like somebody just pulled up and you don't know these guys. You didn't pick any of this. You could have said no. You didn't say no. You actually on here saying yes. You gonna set it up for it. So are you really coerced? Is this really something that you didn't want to do? So that's kind of how they chopped up Jane's testimony on that, of making that doubt of, could she be coerced if she's getting benefits of stuff? Or is she just into this because she's got a thing for people in the music industry? Is there a lifestyle that she's into? Also, she talked about attending someone's similar hotel nights party. So like this is not the first time that she continued to do it after being at someone else's hotel nights, which Diddy got mad about. Like, how could you go to someone else's hotel night? So like it's a lifestyle type of thing allegedly, and she's okay with being in it. That's basically the defense on that. So the jury. So the jury took about 2 days, 2.5 days to come back. And they said the hardest thing for them was the RICO. So they had questions about rug trafficking. And one of the things they brought about rug trafficking was like, okay, can you clarify what that means? Like, does that mean that if I have rugs and I give it to my friend, like that, I'm a rug trafficker? And they're like, yes, under the law, technically, if you give anyone a substance from you to them, you makes you a substance dealer. Oh, okay, bet. So that clarified that for them versus like you had to exchange for money or exchange for something. If you just give to someone, that is what the federal government meant by that. So they came back on the RICO, not guilty. And they couldn't agree to the elements. So the RICO was a nah. He did actually get guilty was prostitution and transportation of Jane and Cassie. So because they were taken from one place to another place and there was payment involved, the jury convicted Diddy of those 2 accounts as guilty. So one might ask, why might they vote this way? Well, when you think about the RICO, right? When they ask that question of like, the rugs. Like, oh, if I give it to my friend, like, does that mean that I'm a dealer? And they're like, yeah, you did it. Oh, okay. Now, we don't talk about this with the law, but these are when you hear people say like, "Oh, I have a case law for that." That means that something was ruled, and now that is sets precedent for the future. So if they had said, "Yeah, we're gonna throw that RICO on them," now that now stands as a baseline opportunity to indict someone, and so that is why the name of this title is "The People versus the Government." Because if you think about it, the people had a decision to make even if they felt that it might have been close to what they considered the law to be, that is not what the citizens are accepting the law to be. Because how am I a dealer if I did not receive anything to give someone something? So it's really the people versus the feds, like, nah, we don't accept that. And the feds are really versus Diddy. Diddy been calling them out for years in the raps. Like, feds come get me. Like, there is some type of reason that they really wanted to get Diddy on these accounts to get him life, right? Like Rico was like end of life type of sentence options on that. And the people were like, nah, that don't mean he didn't do nothing, but he ain't getting that Rico. And so the jury came back. And that's just, I'm not in the jury room, but to me, that makes sense. I am not going to be responsible for the precedent of this moving forward. You ain't, not me. Not when I've seen what I've seen. Not when I've experienced what I've experienced. Absolutely not. And everybody in there thought about their personal rights. And we talk about this on our show a lot about, our actual personal rights. And that's why this is important. Are we going to allow the government to take away your right to some things, because now that interpretation starts there. Right now that interpretation doesn't start there. It starts at, what was it, like the mob or something like that. It was like the last RICO cases that happened. So you got to start from there. But if they would have convicted him of RICO, it starts from here. And that means that it was proven that a RICO can happen based off of feelings. Because the whole point was to really, we have to do this as our job. We have to do this to make him happy. We have to do this because this is what we have to do to make sure things and the brand is protected. That would be the new baseline. And the people were like, nah, what if that's my son? He ends up owning some stuff and now, he flew out a couple of these bras and now, now he in jail because he flew a couple of them out to come have a good time and someone saying XYZ and it's a lot going on, but he works really hard for his money and this is America and you should be able to, have a capitalist lifestyle and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And that is the people versus the government. The government like, nah, we gonna get this guy. And they lost on that RICO. Now, prostitution transportation, I mean, he was moving the girl from here to there and everywhere, according to the jury. And so the jury said, nah, you're going to give him that. Now, sentencing is in October of 2025. They have asked to speed that up. He's already done like 10 months in prison at this point. So a lot of times you get time served, which I would assume is going to happen because he's been in prison. No bail. He asked for bail again. He was like, nah, because on the on the ending statements, his lawyer basically summed it up as, yeah, there were some things going on, a lot of relationship type of things. And we can see there was domestic violence, right? But the things that the feds are saying is not proven. So when he asked for that bail, they're like, well, he's not really a danger to anyone. Judge was like, didn't you just say that was a little DV charge? Did you just say that you admitted that he beat up chicks, that he actually will fight? Sounds like a danger to me. Nah, he gonna stay in jail. So that's what happened, and that's kind of how Diddy is in jail right now. The judge used the closing statements, arguments of the defense to keep him in jail. Also, the prosecution was like, we want the 20 years. We want the 10 on the 10. Now, transportation is a maximum of 10 years. Prostitution is a maximum of 10 years. They're trying to stack them. From my understanding, shout out to Attorney Simone, typically people don't stack that type of like a prostitution and transportation, that's incredibly rare. So, but they asked for it. So if they feel like he is that much of a um, threat, also allegedly Cassie, Deontay Nash, and Chef Jordan, who they did not call to the stand, sent letters to the judge. And so they were like, hey, as people who were victims, like we don't feel comfortable with him just running the streets. He has been sentenced. We're not safe. So keeping that in mind, keep in mind what the judge is kind of looking at. And he's like, nah, you're gonna stay in there, especially since y'all went up here on a whole world tour. And I had to tell you 3 times that you did 3 different things that were not okay in your closing statement, just so you get the jury to hear that. I got you. I see you. I see you right here. He gonna say here. So that was his way to me of punishing the defense attorneys of what they did that was not okay, and how he phrased the closing arguments. But Mark Anifilo was like, YOLO, like I don't really get one chance to really get out what I have to say. And so I'm gonna do it. And so he rolled the dice on that. So let's do a lessons learned and forward thinking on this whole trial. There's a lot that's happened, a lot of clarity on the law and how the law is being interpreted in 2025. This man just got a charge for prostitution, transportation of fluing a chick out. You're getting flued out. Okay. Getting flued out can be a fed charge, essentially, is what that message came across. So maybe with the actual revolution and the uptick in women having the ability to make more money than men a lot of times, like more money than they used to at the very least, maybe you guys should think twice about flying them out, because that's a charge. According to this, that is a fed charge. If you take her across state lines, if she coming from Miami and she coming to Philadelphia for actual acts, fed charge. That's what this trial just did. That trial, it does set that as a precedent. So let's put on our thinking caps. Is it worth it? And also, how do we educate the young people of why would we do all that? If you really coming to hang out with so and so, then why does he have to pay for you to come? Now, a lot of women gonna disagree with me, like, hey, look, it's my time. Well, then technically he's exchanging your time for money. You take that as you will. But if you were gonna go to Philly because you wanted to go check out XYZ and you happen to just see him because you paid for your own stuff and you was gonna kick it, you going to wherever you gonna go regardless, and see your homegirl or whatever it is, that's different. But if you came there, he paid for you to come there. There's a lot of times that we can be honest here. It's an expectation from people that you're going to do something, whether that be spend time with them, whether that's to do actual acts with them, whether it's to, you know, go to a wedding with them as a plus one. There is a purpose of why they paid for you to go to said place. That's setting a precedent for it. So I think as we spend our money, we should put on our thinking caps. And with AI being the way that it is, it's, to me, it's going to be much more black and white when we get into these courtrooms. One thing, like I said, with this jury is the jury tried to not change the RICO norm on that, but they did change the prostitution transportation norm, because now it's not, could it be? No, it's ruled that it is. How can we be better from this? I think a way that we could be better is to, we talk about these women being independent and stuff like that, but when we look at Cassie and Jane, was that really being an independent woman? How many of us would really do that anyways, even if we call ourselves an independent woman? Either we gonna be independent or we gonna be dependent. When you take that flight, and that flight there, you're on your way to being a dependent. From, at least from my perspective. You don't want to be in the kitchen. You don't want to be a stay-at-home wife. You want to be a stay-at-home mom, but you want to pay for everything. That's over here. If you're gonna do it yourself, and you don't need as a bonus, like if he wants to be around or whatever it is, you on the independent path. But if you expect for him to do all these things and pay for everything, then you're going down the dependent path. So I just challenge us as women to think about the messages that we're sending. Because if you're going down a dependent path, to me, this is a telltale of from a young girl's perspective, especially now hold on, let me pause on Jane. She was like 35. She don't get no pass on being young. Like, girl, you were like 35 years old when this was going on. Yes, and I say years old because you've been grown for a smooth almost 20 years, which is crazy that you're even being able to be coerced. But here, that's a whole other conversation. I do still question her. It sounds like she want to be a dependent because she's still getting that 10 racks a month to stay there. So lessons learned. Think about this. You could be catching a Fed charge just for a good time, which you could find at the local club down the street, at least in the state. Chicks, do you really call yourself dependent or independent? And why? What do you want your legacy to be? Because do you want to be known as this? Like that poor lady, like they both got kids. So I'll just leave that there. All right, y'all. That's all I got today. I've talked more than enough. I gave you the full rundown. Drop some drip in the comments. Let me know if y'all liked it, if you didn't like it. Um, would you like to see more of this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that the ruling was valid? Do you think there was RICO? Would you have said, forget that? I don't care about that. Set the new RICO precedent. Let us know. Do you think that it wasn't prostitution and transportation, that they were willing participants and he should be not guilty? Do you think he should be guilty of all of it? Drop some drip in the comments. Really appreciate y'all being here. Thanks for spending the time with me. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Make sure you leave a comment. Very much appreciate y'all. And make sure you check us out on Fridays, late night. Appreciate y'all. Bye.
Damon Jam got the tea in the grill. Spilling true bombs, daily drip. I squad flex, yeah, never skill. Story so fresh, let the vibe equip. Drip, drop, the news won't stop. They got the juice, rising to the top. Tune in quick, don't let it fly. I squad rolling, we make it past. Just pay on the beat.